Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for taking the time to invest in yourself, your connection with your children, your parenting, and then with the world, because the world really needs us to heal ourselves and to raise whole children. So, thank you for your time and thank you for being here. Today, we're going to talk about school. We're going to talk about education. We're going to talk about homework because this is a very intense topic for a lot of parents um, and their children. There's so much to talk about around this. So we'll just cover some of it today. I want to be really clear when I say that I'm not an educator. I never have been. I can't say I never will be, but I do not have background in education. So I'm not speaking as a teacher. I'm speaking as a consultant and a support for parents who are supporting their children through school. Okay, so I just want to make that really clear. Now, that being said, there's a lot of talk around schooling these days. A lot of more and more parents are taking their children out of typical school environments. And I want to talk about the reason for that and how we can just create a supportive environment for our children, no matter what school we choose to send them to. Because some of us may have the ability to be really flexible, right? Or to choose the kind of program that we're going to put our children in. But for some of us, we can't. We have to have our children in school full time because we work or that's just what works best for our family. Our children want to be in school, right? And so we don't all have, the availability to just choose whatever learning style necessarily that we want our children to have. So let's just talk about how we can support our children through school. How can we support our children through homework? How can we support our children to, through whatever environment that we choose to put them in? Or like I said, maybe the environment is beyond our choice. One thing that's really important to start off this conversation with, right? One thing that's really important to have and keep in our mind is that the environment that our children is in for school is the majority of their waking hours during the week. So when they come home from school and our child is in any sort of mood, the first question we want to ask is not, and I know what comes a lot of times to parents' minds is like, it's always like they save it for me, they're great in school, but then they come home and they're super difficult. Like, why can't they be as respectful, or as kind or as patient as they are in school? The truth is that at school, our children are many times, acting within the parameters that the teacher creates or the school creates. I know that some of us have children who act out at school as well, and we can definitely talk about that. Many of our children are forced to sit in a certain way for most of the day and behave a certain way that may not be really what their body is asking for and needing. What their emotions may not be getting met on a consistent, regular basis in school the way that we're trying to do at home, because there aren't enough adults in the classroom to really make sure that every child's needs are met the way that perhaps we can when we're at home and we have less children to handle than a teacher does in a whole classroom. But the bottom line is that we have to remember and think that our child is holding themselves together for an entire day. So many things happen at school. There is so much time for our children to have thoughts, lots of thoughts, and to feel uncomfortable and to not know how to express themselves or express themselves, and a teacher isn't listening to them. So much happens at school, and our child may keep and store that all day long. And when they come home, they finally feel a safe space to release it. So that's the first thing that we want to start to look into and notice. So that can be expressed as behavior when our children come home from school. But that can also be expressed in terms of whether our children go to do their homework or not, go to study for their tests or not, how they speak and behave with their siblings at home. So much of it can actually come from what is or isn't happening at school. And so now the question is, well, the first part is obviously to acknowledge it and to know that, right? Like there are so many things that happen at school that just because your child doesn't come home and let you know about them, it doesn't mean that they didn't happen. And so it's really important to be aware of that, to be aware that there are so many things that happen. But then let's say our child is always coming home from school and they're refusing to do their homework, which is one of the biggest I don't want to say complaints, but biggest challenges that many parents have with children that get homework sent home from school is like, my kid doesn't want to do their homework, or they say they forgot it, or they don't know what to do, or they're just like sitting there twiddling their thumbs, or they're procrastinating, or they're watching TV and they're leaving it to the last minute. So the first thing is to figure out why they are approaching homework in that way. And that can come from so many different places. That can come from a feeling of insecurity. That can come from a feeling of burnout, right? A child comes home from school and they're just finished and exhausted from the day, and now they're expected to do homework. That's a lot that we're asking our children to be aware and awake to, right? It could be that our child doesn't know what to do, or they're getting the answers wrong a lot and they're embarrassed to tell us, right? Or they don't feel comfortable telling us, or they don't think they can tell us about that. And so they don't want to start their homework because in school they are getting the questions wrong a lot of times. And that could be so many different reasons. That could be for so many different reasons. But the most important thing for us as parents to be aware of is that our child isn't just trying to be difficult. And it's not that simple to say, you got to sit down and you got to do your homework. We must, and I know it's challenging, especially at night, we're tired, and homework is just not something that I look forward to by any means. But as parents, it's our duty and our responsibility to figure out what is keeping our child from it. Okay. Why they're feeling a resistance towards jumping into it. And then it's our job to create the space to help them to feel on top of it, right? And that doesn't have to mean just sitting with them all the time. If our child is coming home completely burnt out from school, why are they completely burnt out from school? And how can we create a space for them to rejuvenate themselves so that they can start their homework and actually really get into it and be empowered by it? Perhaps our child is having a really hard time in school. I remember that as a child, and my daughter is the same way. If I didn't understand a concept right away, I already felt like, what's the point? I'm not getting it, or I'd like give up. And the teachers are even noticing it with my daughter, that like sometimes she just kind of like, if she doesn't get it right away, she's like turns off. Right? She can't do that. But it's not just about noticing what it is and telling her you can't do that. It's about figuring out why. What is it? What is at the root of it that is really stopping our child from doing the homework? And so again, we're always coming back to this. We're always coming back to checking what need isn't being met, and also what limiting belief there is. What self-talk my child is telling him or herself, right? So I know for my daughter, when she's not doing the work because she didn't get it the first time, she's thinking to herself, I'm not smart, I can't do it. Right? Or like she's also a little bit impatient. So if she doesn't get it the first time, then she just doesn't want to get it at all. She's like, whatever. So that's something that I need to work on with her, right? To have the patience to have the patience to have the patience with herself, to be okay with making mistakes, to understand that it takes time to learn things. Now, that's one aspect of it, right? That's, I think, one of the most important ways to approach homework is to not look at it like it's a one size fits all kind of thing. It's also a lot about, as parents, noticing, recognizing what our judgments are. How are we judging our child, and what are our expectations from them? What is our intention when they're coming home from school? Are we dreading it? Are we like, it's going to be another night like that? We're already starting off on that foot, right? That creates this like frustration in the air that our children will feel. So it's important for us to get to the bottom, to the root of what is keeping our child from doing their homework. But it's also really important for us to notice our judgments and to have a lot of empathy for our children, to have a lot of empathy for where they are and for why they're feeling the way that they're feeling. And now it's not about, letting them get away with not doing what they're supposed to do, but it's absolutely holding the space of having empathy for them while they're going through this tough moment. Now let's talk about behavior. Our child is coming home and is just like coming home from school in like a foul mood. chances are there's something happening at school. There's something happening at school. And a lot of times as parents, we drop our kids off and we're like, oh, our break. This is our break. This is their opportunity to get educated. We're leaving them in professional hands. We're expecting our school establishment to be able to handle everything. But the truth of the matter is, you may be lucky enough to be in a school that is taking into account every child's needs, not just academic, but social, emotional, making sure that they're really taken care of. But many schools aren't. And as parents, it is our duty and responsibility to make sure that that is all being taken care of in school. It's to ask the questions. The child who says, I don't remember what happened, or nothing happened, or the day was fine, chances are there's a lot they're not telling you, right? We want our child to be able to get in the car and let us know what happened. We want to know what happened in their day. We want to ask the right questions. And I know that as our children grow up, the answers become more and more like, I don't know, I don't remember, it doesn't matter, I don't care. That's because they're closed off to what's happening during the day, because there's something that is closing them off, that is shutting them down, or there are things that they don't feel comfortable sharing with you and expressing with you. So the first thing as a parent I ask you to do is to look inside, look at yourself, and notice how you have responded in the past and how you do respond right now to the things your child tells you about their school day. Right? And if you have younger children, it's a really important time to nurture this, because learning to respond in a way that creates a space where a child feels like, hey, my parent is listening, they care, they're not judging me, they have empathy for me, will then create the space for our teenagers to, want to tell their parents about what happened in school, to not just kind of be asleep at the wheel, the teenagers, I mean, right? Or know what happened and not give themselves the space to process it when they get home at night, or not feel safe or comfortable to share with their parents what is happening when they get home. So even if you do have a teenager who is already in that space, or a middle schooler who's in that space, there's so much you can do to repair it and to create a different environment around this right now. Here's what you do. When your child shares anything with you about school, you want to, first of all, have a lot of empathy for them. You're just listening to them. You're listening without judgment, without thinking. You're just listening, nothing. You're not trying to come up with a solution. You're not trying to make them feel better. You're not trying to remedy it, to fix it. You're just listening, especially teenagers. They don't want you to fix. They just want you to hear them. Okay? So you're just listening. You're listening to everything that happened. The second thing is, you can acknowledge whatever happened. Oh, I heard that happened, and I heard you say that you were feeling this. Did I get that right? That's a really important question to ask children and teenagers and middle schoolers, because you want them to know you are confirming that you understood it correctly, because it's so important to you that you understood what they said. Okay? That's That's one way to go. Another way to go is to just be in question mode, to just ask. You can ask questions. Okay. Now, for a child who doesn't want you to ask questions, you want to create the space where you want them to want you to be involved, right? So you want to just respect that space when they are like, don't ask me, like you have an older child. Okay. You just want to have empathy for that, because that is a response in itself. Don't ask me. I don't want to tell you. I don't want to talk about it. That's a response. Have empathy for it. Don't push it, right? Whatever it is that our children tell us, just be there and listening. And then you can repeat back, make sure you got it right. You can request permission to ask questions about it. You can ask how it made them feel. Don't assume how it made them feel, right? Wow, that would have, you can say, maybe that would have made me feel angry. How did you feel about that? But you wouldn't want to say, wow, that must have made you really angry, because we don't want to ever assume what our children feel. And it's really important, because as young children may not be as sensitive to that as older children are, but it is laying the foundation for how your child just feels within their interaction with you. It's laying the foundation for how your child is going to want to continue to communicate with you going forward. right? So if your child has learned to expect that you're going to interject and give your opinion when they're young, as they get older, they're not going to want to talk to you about those things the same way, most likely. But if when they're young, you're already asking them how their day was, right? You're not interjecting, you're just listening, you're just having empathy. You're not taking the other person's side, you're not taking even your child's side, you're just listening. You're a listening ear and you're there. And you're waiting until your child is asking you for advice, or you're asking for permission to give it. Do you want to know what I think? No. Okay. And you don't take it personally, right? Because what you want to do to have and to hold this communicative relationship built on trust and cooperation is just creating the space where your child knows that you're there and they trust you. This is how you build trust. Once they trust you, they will cooperate with you, they will respect you, and eventually they will talk to you also, right? Just by being there, you're there and you're loving every part of them and you're knowing every part of them. And that's really, really, really important when it comes to children. So homework, behavior, the way that our children approach either of these things when they're coming from school can tell us a lot about how their day went. A teenager who says, I don't want to talk about it, or a child who says that, is telling us a lot. That doesn't mean that we ask them to talk about it more. We actually understand that this is their answer. I don't want to talk about it is an answer. It means that there's something there, but maybe they're not ready to talk about it, or maybe they don't trust you yet to talk about it, right? Which means that we just want to give them the space because we want them to know that they are in charge of sharing information. The more we push, the more we prod, the more that we actually push our kids away too. So it's just so important for us to be so aware of our judgments around our children and around homework, around behavior at home. Now let's talk about behavior in school. Some children do not behave in school, right? Behave, quote unquote. They don't follow the school rules. Maybe they have a really challenging time. If they're doing that in school, they are, again, trying to tell you something, or trying to tell their teacher something, or trying to tell their friend something. They are trying to communicate something. Behavior is a child's best attempt at getting their needs met and their beliefs heard. Okay, their self-talk heard. The way they're thinking and believing, what they're believing about themselves, the way they're speaking about themselves. And many schools are not attuned to this way of thinking, to this way of being, to this way of listening to children. As a parent, you still can be. You still can be, and you should stand strong in this, right? Our child is not misbehaving. They're not, and it's not about figuring out how to get them to behave. It's about figuring out how to hear what they're trying to say so you can help them learn how to articulate themselves differently, to not, take it out on their classmates, to be able to be respectful, right? And to abide by the school's rules or the rules of wherever they are in a respectful way, teaching them how to communicate and stand up for themselves and speak up for themselves, no matter what the situation is, right? But just keeping in mind, always knowing and remembering that any behavior is our child trying to tell us something. And so when it comes to school, it's so important for us to always question, always be involved. We can't just drop off our kids and be like, I'm going to let the educators, the teachers take care of it. Because you might have amazing educators, but you still need to be involved, because then the kids come home, your children come home, and you need to be like a partnership, a team with your child, with your children's teachers. And you also want to, create a space where your child knows that they can share with you whatever is happening at school. So much happens at school. And it's so important for us as parents to be in the know and to be connected, and to just know that at the end of the day, it's always about coming down. It comes down to this: what needs aren't being met, or what beliefs does my child have? What do they need from me? Do they need boundaries? Do they need clarity? Do they need more sleep? Do they need better food? Do they need more nutritious food? Do they need to drink water? Do they need time to regulate, to breathe during the day, right? So let's help our children learn how to articulate getting those needs met, so that then they don't have to just not do their homework or behave in a way that is not in alignment with our values or our school's values. So I want to thank you all for joining us for this class. I will definitely talk more about this topic, but I hope that that was helpful and it's a good jumping off point for a lot more conversations around this. So thank you for being here, and I look forward to talking with you again soon.